Today, we're going to go through the steps I used to create this composite type image of a model popping out of a photo frame to do a painting. So let's get started on the steps. To achieve the effect that I wanted, I brought with me an empty picture frame, placed my model in the frame, and had her lean out to provide a three-dimensional type of effect. So this was the picture that I started with. There were several that I took of a similar nature just to see how things would work out. So these are some of the ones that I liked. In a situation like this, I had to make sure that her arm was not intersecting his arm, so I wanted to be able to plan ahead. Now the magic was, before I took any of these shots, is I also took a shot before anybody stepped into the frame. So I made sure there were no shadows on the floor and that I had something that I could use as a backdrop. All right, so that is the first step. So I'm going to take these 4 images and I'm just going to bring all of them into Photoshop. So right click, select them all, right click, edit in Photoshop as layers. And so off we go. So I'm going to take the base layer and put that at the very, very bottom if that's not where it lands. And it's almost there. There we go. Okay, so the base layer ended up on the very top, which is not where I want it. Okay, let me just toggle it on and off. And it looks like things are lined up pretty good. I'm looking at the tree in the background and it's not moving too much. But I'm going to take this, bring it right down to the bottom because that's what I want. And then I'm going to select the top one, hit shift and select the bottom one. And I'm going to try to align all of these. So edit, auto align. And I'm just going to say auto because it's got all 4 layers. I'll say OK. And even though I put my camera on a tripod and took all of these pictures without moving my camera as much as possible, look at the edge here. You see there's still a little bit of alignment that was necessary. But yeah, it tried to align that one. These two. So the frame is moving, but that's okay. The tree in the background is still pretty good. The paintbrush is now selected. I'm painting in black, and I will now make sure I'm clicked on the mask, not on picture. So there's a little border around the mask. Now if I paint something with black, I'm going to make sure my brush is a reasonable size and opacity is 100, flow is 100. And I'm going to use there we go. I'm going to use a general brush, come on. And it's going to be a soft round brush, but I don't want it to be pressure sensitive. I want 100% pressure all the time, so I'm just going to use soft round brush. Okay, so there's my brush. Now, if I erase something like this, I'm erasing the top layer, and you see the picture and the frame disappear. So I'm going to hit Control Z and undo that. So what am I going to erase? I want to erase down here, and I want to erase her, and obviously I want to erase some of her shadow, maybe up here, something like that. Oops, I'm using a tablet and I just hit the button on my tablet. So I'm going to erase this, and I'm going to make the brush a little bit bigger by hitting the square bracket key, and I'm just going to erase all of this over here. And you see, because I had the other image underneath, it's very easy to replace anything. So I'm going to come down here, make this a little bit smaller. I'm going to zoom in because I want to be a lot more careful over here about. And if you want to erase in a straight line, I can click down, hit the shift key, and click again. And then click down, hit the shift key, and up again. And that's pretty good. Make the brush a little bit bigger. And so I'm just erasing anything I don't want. I will come over here, and again, I'm going to hit click, shift, and then I'm going to come all the way over here and hit There we go. And I'm just going to erase this over here. So having two images registered in alignment, I can see that things are going to line up very nicely. And I don't have to actually use clone stamp or anything to create the background. I just reveal the background that was originally there. And I will, let's see, there's still some shadow. The shadow from the easel I want to keep, but some of the shadow that was there from my model and her skirt I don't want to have. Okay, so it looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control and Shift the mask. Whoops, my mistake. I'm going to do Alt and hit the mask. And I can see where I've painted black, and there's a couple places where it's clear that I've kind of missed. So I'm going to just fill those in, because I probably just missed little areas that are inappropriate. And I'm going to hit Control 0 to go to the end. Oh, okay, so there's more here where his arm was. So this would have been his arm right against the edge of the mask, right against the edge of the frame, I should say. And this just gives me a nice uniform. I'm always using the underlying layer by painting over here. I don't want to paint over here because it's probably erasing easel and stuff like that. So I'm going to hit Alt and then that again. And that looks about right. So I could do the same thing. I could erase, not erase, but unview that layer, and I can do the same thing and do this layer, right? I could have to add a mask to it. And then I have to, kind of do the same thing all over again and be careful once again around. And, I'm going to go much faster this time and just erase this type of stuff here. And reduce the brush really small, and I'm just going to there we go, something like that. And over here again, just underneath there we go. All right, so, and then I'll Alt click on the mask, and I can see there's a bunch of stuff that I obviously missed. I'll just kind of fill that in over here. And looks like I was a little fast and sloppy over here, and there we go. And Alt click mask again, and I think that's pretty good. Looks like there's some stuff right here that I miss as well. I didn't go very fast here, or very quick, very well, very carefully, whatever. Okay, so there's two pictures done. This one, and I could do the other one as well, but I'm going to leave that for another session. So once that is done, I can actually apply global layers to the overall effect. So for instance, I can take a curve adjustment and curves and kind of just reduce some of that exposure over there a little bit. Something like that. It's changing the color a little bit more than I want. It's adding contrast. Come on. It's adding the contrast that I want, but not affecting the color. So I'm going to change this to a luminosity curve. There we go. That's pretty good. And I mean, if you wanted to do something like sky replacement or whatever, you could do that as well. Control Alt Shift E creates a snapshot, and then I can turn around and do something like edit sky replacement. I'm not going to spend a lot of time choosing the sky. I'm just going to let it pick one that's there, and that's not too bad. And I'll hit OK. we're in good shape. So I'm going to return this image back to Lightroom. And we're back in Lightroom, and I have my PSD file right over here. I'm just going to hit D. And there's a little bit of stuff on the edges that I'm going to have to crop out, so I'm just going to bring this down a little bit over here and a little bit over there, and the top and the side look pretty good. So I'm also going to darken the bottom a little bit because that road's taking up a lot of brightness. I'll just do that and double click and bring the exposure down just a bit on the bottom of the road. I kind of like that. And finally, I think this picture's a little bit bright. I'm just going to reduce that overall brightness and radial brush. I'm just going to do that. I'm not going to be too precise about it. Again, double click and I'll just take some of the highlights off of that. That's not too bad. Maybe bring that little saturation on there. Okay, so I've got this floating image. I reduced the cropping just enough to eliminate the artifacts on the side, but in fact it's not a very great composition, so I'm actually going to change the cropping even more and do something like this. Maybe even rotate the picture slightly. It looks like I got a bit more off the bottom here, and do something along these lines. And put that to full screen. And that's probably the effect I wanted. Thank you.